Let's talk about how to avoid timeouts when babysitting. Stay tuned. Hey sitters, welcome back. Thanks for joining me. This week we will be talking about timeouts and how to avoid them. As you can see, I had a little bit of timeout myself in my own sort of way. I had minor surgery on my wrist. It's no big deal. It's healing well. But if anybody has lost the use of their hand, you probably know how annoying it can be. I have been fortunate enough where I haven't had to use timeout very often in the years that I've been babysitting, but that doesn't mean I haven't used timeout. So make sure you stick till the end so I can share with you some of those, what some of those situations looked like. The key to avoiding timeout altogether is making that connection. And I do want to say that connection can start for the first time you meet that family. I did a video saying that before you go babysit for a family, I really recommend that you go and meet the family beforehand to make sure that you understand how that family works and meeting the kids, but specifically so you can ask questions to the kids, not to the parents, to the kids about what they enjoy. So do they enjoy being outdoors more than indoors? Do they enjoy crafts? Do they enjoy gymnastics, football, baseball? Ask them those specific questions so when you come back for the first time to babysit, you have something to build off of. So the reason that connection is key is because you want to have the kids view you as somebody who's coming to play with them, who also happens to have the knowledge and experience to keep the kids safe. So when you go into that house, those kids need to look at you as a happy, playful, fun babysitter who is there to play with them. You're not there to tell them what to do. You're not there to make commands and sit on the couch on your phone. You're there to get outside with them and play. You're there to play Play-Doh with them, or get on the ground and have a tea party, or make a fort, or you're there to have fun and entertain while mom and dad are gone. You're not there to replace mom and dad. You're there to, in their eyes, be a playful, fun babysitter and who also happens to be able to keep them safe. By doing what you're doing and being engaging and being right there with the kids leaves little opportunity for the kids to get into trouble, so much so that you need to put them in timeout. By being that playful, fun, engaging babysitter, there will be times where the kids will listen to you the first time you ask them to do something than if you were not engaging with them. So here's a perfect example. So say Tommy, Billy, and I were playing and Tommy hits Billy. And I'm right there, I'm engaged with them, and I can say, hey Tommy, let's not hit Billy, please. We don't use our hands for hitting. He's more willing to be like, yeah, you're right, I probably shouldn't hit. Than if I were to sit on the couch watching Tommy and Billy and play, and Tommy hits Billy, and I say, hey Tommy, don't hit Billy, and I go back into my phone and I'm distracted. Tommy's like, she's not watching me. What's gonna make her stop me from hitting him again? And it's gonna keep on happening. And that will lead to a timeout. Rather than you being right there engaging and say, hey, let's just not hit Billy. We can either keep playing this game and you keep your hands to yourself, or we're gonna have to find a different game to play. That way, you're right there, you're engaging, you're fun, you're still being respected. It's easier for him to say, you're right, I don't want to stop playing with you and Billy, so I will keep my hands to myself, rather than you sitting back and say, don't do that, and him saying, there's nothing stopping me. Before we jump into using timeouts, I want you guys to understand that you need to ask the family their way of disciplining children. If they believe in timeouts, cool, we're going to use timeout. If they don't believe in timeouts, figure out what they use for discipline and use what they're using. You want to be consistent with what the family's using, and you want to respect what the family has to say as well. So let's say that Tommy does keep on hitting Billy. It is called for a timeout. We're going to go ahead and put Tommy in timeout. What's the most effective way, and what will get through to Tommy that he is not allowed to hit Billy? So first is consistency. Consistency is key. You can't put Tommy in timeout because he was hitting Billy, but not putting Billy in timeout because he was hitting Tommy. Everybody sits in timeout for the same actions. You can't be picky and choosy. You just make sure you're consistent with it. Now here's my process on how I put kids in timeout. I take them to where they need to sit in timeout. I explain to them why they're sitting in timeout. I tell them how long they'll be there, which is usually a minute for every year they are. Sometimes I add minutes or take minutes on depending on the action, but that's usually the rule I go by. So I explain to them how long they'll be there. I make sure that there's nothing around that they could play with or destroy. So I clear the area, and then I walk away and make sure that nobody else is engaging with them so that they understand that this is not supposed to be a fun time. They're supposed to be reflecting on what they did and why they shouldn't be doing it. And then when the time's up, I come back, have them explain to me exactly why I put them in timeout, which I had told them beforehand, so there wasn't any confusion. And if they still don't know why they were in timeout, I explain it again. If they sat through timeout nicely and they did their time, then I will say, okay, we give hugs, we say sorry if sorry is needed, and we move on. I don't hold any grudges. I don't have an attitude towards them the rest of the day because they did sit in timeout or they were a bad kid. No grudges. We move on. They did their time. We forget about it. Now, what happens when they keep getting up out of their chair and they're not sitting there nicely? So now there can be a couple different ways. So say Tommy sits there nicely for 2 minutes, gets up and starts arguing with Billy. I take Tommy back to timeout. I put him there. I say, Tommy, since you got up out of timeout without finishing your time, I'm adding on 30 more seconds. Now, this isn't a lot of time, but to him, it's kind of like, oh man, I now have to sit here for a little bit longer because I got up instead of just sitting here through the full time. So every time that they get up, it's a 30-second add-on. Sometimes if I know they're younger and they're antsy, it's not because they're doing it not on purpose, but they're antsy. Young, and when I say young kids, 3 and under should not be in timeout anyways. They don't really know what's going on. It's not really effective for anybody that young. But 4 or 5-year-olds, if they're antsy and they're just standing up and sitting back down and walking around, I do put them back in the chair and I may say, hey, we're going to add on 10 seconds or 15 seconds. So that they understand that they can't get up and they shouldn't be getting up, but they're not getting up to go argue with somebody or get into trouble again. It's just an antsy kind of thing. You want to make sure that you're not making time out forever for them. It's not going to be effective as well. So you want to make sure that if Tommy's sitting there and he's made it through 4 minutes, he only has a minute left, and you can see him getting antsy, encourage him to stay there and be like, Tommy, we have 30 more seconds. Please don't get up. You're almost there, bud. The younger ones can't tell time. So if you take 30 seconds off of it, it's not going to be a big deal. He's not going to know. It'll be more effective that he was able to sit through that whole time than if you're actually going to get that 30 seconds in for him to sit for the full 5 minutes. So you really have to be flexible on timeout, but making sure that they understand that you're not flexible, if that makes sense. You got to trick them into thinking that they're sitting there for longer than they really are. But make sure that you stick to what you're saying and don't be wishy-washy on it. So if you told them 5 minutes, you're not going to have them sitting anywhere near longer than 6 minutes. There's no reason for it, and it's not going to be effective. Now, like I said before, timeout is something you need to talk to that family about. Their rules, their house, their discipline choices, and you need to respect what the family asks of you to do. Avoid timeout at all costs by being engaging, being fun, being playful, making that connection with those kids. Get in there and become more friends with them than anything. and you can most likely avoid those timeouts. Thanks for watching. If you guys have any questions, please let me know down in the description below. If you have any questions or topics that you'd like to see a video on, leave that in the description below as well. Hit that subscribe button if you're new, and I will see you guys in the next video.